This is the live podcast with Manuel, living in full expression. Most of us think waiting for the right time is wisdom. In truth, for many people, it's a decay wearing the costume of patience. Every day we delay a decision we've already made in our hearts, our potential quietly rots on the vine. But not everyone who is stalling is afraid. Some people are genuinely unsure whether what they are waiting to start is even the right thing to give their life for it. And that uncertainty deserves compassion, not a lecture about courage. And living in full expression means telling the difference between the two and knowing that in both cases, clarity and momentum are found by moving, not by waiting any longer for a certainty that was never going to arrive first. I want you to stop lying to yourself that you are waiting for the right time to start, because someday is the most dangerous word in your vocabulary. You aren't being patient. You are trading your momentum for the stagnant rot of perfectionism. While you hesitate, your potential is actually decaying into a silent regret that will eventually become too heavy to carry. Now, before you think this episode is about to lecture you for the next few minutes, I want to tell you something else. I want you to know that not everyone listening right now is stuck because of fear. Some of you are stuck because you are genuinely not sure if this is even the right thing to be pouring your life into. And that's a completely different problem, and one that deserves love and not a push. This is the Live Podcast with me, your host, Manuel. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the cost of hesitation, why your perfect moment is rotting on the vine, and how to tell the difference between fear and genuine uncertainty so you know exactly which one you are actually dealing with. So if you're ready, let's get started. So the alignment of stars you are actually waiting for is an illusion designed to keep you safe and stagnant. Every second you spend overthinking is a second your dream loses its pulse and begins to wither on the vine. Here's an image I want you to hold on to throughout this episode. Fruits don't wait for perfect weather to ripen. It reaches its moment and it must be picked, or it begins to rot right there on the branch. Not because anything went wrong, but simply because time did not stop for the picking to become convenient. Most people think waiting for a perfect plan is wisdom. It's actually a slow death to your potential. You aren't being careful. You're letting your best ideas rot while you overthink, which is dressed up in the language of patience. We live in a culture that is obsessed with immediate results, fast growth, fast success, fast transformation. And ironically, that same obsession with speed often produces the opposite of action. When people are only shown the highlight reels, the fast wins, the overnight success, they get paralyzed by how long anything real actually takes. If it's not going to be fast, some part of us decides it's not worth starting at all. But here's what I want to be honest about before we go further in this episode. Hesitation doesn't always come from fear. For some people, it's not that you are afraid of failing. It's that you genuinely don't know if this particular thing, maybe the business, the relationship, the move, is even the right one to invest your limited time in. And you rather stay still than spend years building something, you might discover was the wrong thing all along. And that is not the same problem as fear, I must say. This is very important. And it needs a different kind of approach, which is exactly where we are headed in this episode. I just want to share this brief experience I had with you. I once saw someone being celebrated on screen for a skill they had clearly mastered, polished, confident, the kind of skill that looks like it must have come easily to them. Then, during the interview, they mentioned, almost in passing, that they had been practicing that particular skill for over 13 years before that very moment. 13 years. I remember thinking to myself, that's a long time. And then immediately after that thought, I realized something else. That person started at some point 13 years earlier with none of the mastery they had now. They just started imperfectly, without an audience, without any guarantee it would ever amount to what we are now watching. Now, this is the tension so many of us live inside. We want the result of 13 years of consistency delivered on the timeline of 13 days. And when we are shown only the finished, celebrated version of anyone's mastery, we get quite paralyzed by how long the real version actually takes. So instead of starting an imperfect version 1, we wait for a clarity or a readiness that was never going to arrive before the starting date itself. So there's an old saying that captures this better than I can. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. I'm sure you remember that saying. And the second best time is today. This is because nobody gets to go back and plant in 20 years earlier. The only time that was ever actually available to any of us is the one we are standing in right now. So that person on the screen didn't have 13 years of certainty before they began. They had 13 years of starting, adjusting, and continuing. The mastery came after the starting, not before it. All right? So I want to do something with you right now that I do with most of my clients when we get to this point, if they are having such fear or such unclarity. Now, these are going to be real questions, and I want you to take them seriously and respond to them honestly. And I want to walk two different paths here because I don't want to talk to you as if you are only ever afraid. It might be that you simply need clarity. So I want to do that in this section of this episode. Now, as always, I'm going to take you through layers to be able to uncover what it is that is holding you back. So let's look at layer number 1, the surface awareness. What is the someday you have been carrying? You know, the thing you've already decided somewhere inside that you want to do, but you keep pushing to a future date that never actually arrives. I want you to name that specifically and be honest with yourself about how long it's actually been sitting there, maybe weeks, months, or even years. And whatever comes up to you at this very moment, whatever shows up, I need to sit with it for a moment because we're going to go deeper on that. So think about it. What is that thing that you know you've made decision about, but you're still delaying on it? You're still holding on it. It doesn't matter how many days or how many months or weeks or even years that has been. Whatever shows up right now as I'm talking to you, I want you to hold on to that. Now, the second layer I want to take you through is the root identification. Then the path 1, which is whether it is fear that is holding you. We want to explore that and see whether it is fear that is actually holding you down. So for some people, the honest answer underneath the waiting is fear. So we want to talk about that. Maybe fear of starting badly, fear of being seen before you're even ready, fear that if you commit and it didn't work, it will say something permanent about you. You know, if this is you, I want to ask you something. When did you first learn that starting imperfectly in public was dangerous rather than simply normal? I want you to trace it back to somewhere specific, a moment you were laughed at, corrected harshly, or made to feel that mistakes were costly rather than expected. If the honest answer is uncomfortable, I want you to know that that's not weakness, that is data. Because this is where many people have been caged. You know, they've been corrected harshly, they've had lots of mistakes that they've been talked down on, and this has held them back in even taking another step because they feel that they are not worthy of that step. They are not worthy. They are afraid of what comes next. So if you find yourself in that level of fear, I want you to name that specifically right now. And if you can, write it down on a paper, on your journal, because that's one of the things that is keeping you. All right? So now let's look at the second path. We've talked about the fear path. So let's even go to the second path, which is the root identification part 2, knowing really if this is the issue of uncertainty. Now, if you're in this category, maybe it's not fear at all. Is that you're honestly unsure whether this particular thing deserves your limited time. You don't want to spend years building towards something only to discover it was never actually yours to build. If this is you, maybe this is where you find yourself. Maybe you're not in the fear category, you're in the part of uncertainty. I want you to know something clearly. That instinct is not weakness, and it is not the same problem as fear. It's actually a form of wisdom that has simply been applied at the wrong moments before you had enough real information to use it well. I want to ask you honestly, has waiting actually given you more clarity, or has it simply given you more time to spin the same question without new information? Let me ask you that question slowly and clearly. Has waiting actually given you more clarity, or has it simply given you more time to spin the same question without new information? I want you to pause with that question, because you can say it's uncertainty, but you've been waiting for days, weeks, months, or even years now. Has that given you more new information? All right, let's go to the layer number 3. This layer, I call it the separation and the reorientation. In this layer, we're going to separate and reorient. So here's the distinction that matters for both paths, just in case you are in any of those. If it's fear, the separation is this. Starting imperfectly is not the same as failing permanently. It is one data point in a much longer story, not a verdict on who you are. And I want you to know this very clearly. It is not about your identity. So I want you to know that that's an illusion, that's a mirage that is keeping you, and you need to get loose from it. But if it's genuine uncertainty, the separation is this. Clarity is not something you find by thinking longer. It is something you earn by gathering real information through small, reversible action. Because waiting does not produce more certainty, it only produces more waiting. So here's the real question for you. Whichever path you are on right now, what is the smallest possible action you could take this week? Not the whole limp, I don't mean the whole thing. What would either move you forward or give you real honest data about whether this is actually yours to pursue? Because that's the shift for both. Not eliminating the fear or the uncertainty before you move, but rather moving in a way small enough that either one is survivable. So here's how you turn what just surfaced into something practical. And I'm going to give you 3 moves with a branch in the middle. Now, here is move number 1. I want you to name your someday and how long it's been decaying. Write the specific thing you've been postponing and an honest count of how long it's been sitting there. Because naming the actual timeline makes the cost real instead of abstract. Then let's look at move number 2. And I call this a diagnosis of which path you are actually on. I want you to ask yourself plainly, is this fear of starting badly or a genuine uncertainty about whether this is the right thing at all? I don't need to rush this segment of the question that I just asked you, because getting the diagnosis right changes what comes next. So sit with that. Is this fear of starting badly or fear of criticism or fear of failing? Or is it genuinely uncertainty about whether this is the right thing at all? Now, here's move number 3. Like I said, it's going to be a branch. If it's a fear, I want you to take the imperfect step. So what you want to do right now is to commit to one small, specific, public enough action this week. Regardless of how ready you feel, just take the step anyway. Because readiness is not a prerequisite for starting. It is actually a byproduct of having already started. And then if it's an uncertainty problem, I want you to run the smallest honest experiment right now. I want you to design one small, cheap, reversible test, something you could try in the next 7 or 30 days that would give you real evidence either way. Not more research, real life information. If you want to build this out fully, I have created a premium worksheet that will walk you through diagnosing your specific hesitation and then building either your imperfect steps or your smallest experiment with a deadline attached to it. That premium workbook, the link to it is found in the show notes. So go get it. Because these are very important things. You need to know what is actually stopping you. Is this uncertainty or is it fear? And this fear can come in diverse ways, can be as a result of different things. So you need to dig that out and point it out. So here are 3 things I want you to walk away with in this episode, even as I close. There is no perfect time. There is only the present moment. Decaying a little more each day, you wait for one. And number 2 is this. Not all hesitation is fear. Some of it is genuine uncertainty, and it deserves compassion, not a lecture about courage. Number 3 is in both cases, clarity and momentum are found the same way, through small, honest action, not through more waiting. And I want you this week to name your someday. Diagnose it honestly, and take one small step that is sized so that whichever path you are on, it's survivable. And I want you to go grab the premium worksheet in the show notes if you want to build this out fully. The best time was years ago. The next best time is today. So go pick the fruit before it rots. This has been the Life Podcast with me, your host, Manuel. And until I come your way in our next episode, keep living in full expression.